Hello, friends. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, welcome back for some, and welcome perhaps for the first time for others. We are going to spend a few minutes letting people get in the room and show up. We usually do that. If you haven't been here before, we take about 5 minutes or so just to let people arrive. And then we get into whatever the program of the day is. And it's usually a combination of some teachings and something interactive and something guided. And today, in honor of solstice, we will do all those things with maybe extra guidance in a shared prayer and an extended meditation. So, with that, welcome. And welcome, Deborah.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine.
Have we met?
Yes, I was here last week.
Oh, last week, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But relatively new.
Right.
And here, what do we have from Carol? This is Tapping Joy In. Carol, do you want to tell us about the link?
Oh, Jonathan, I was just listening to the talk that you posted us in your letter,
Oh, yes.
and you spoke about the joy and holding joy in the heart and things. And Donna's got her method for it, and she taps it in to the third eye.
Very nice. All right. Well, thank you for including a tool or resource. And I would certainly recommend anyone and everyone, if you want to add a tool, a resource, a book, a video, uh, that's great. And that's one of the nice things about being here. I am going to acknowledge Joni, who has not only filled in for me as a facilitator, but we have been a part of your healing journey, and you couldn't look more well. Do you want to say anything about that, or just thank you?
Well, thank everyone. It's truly been a bit of an up and down journey, and I don't want to like lose it here, but I've got to say that in in some of my more difficult moments, um, it's like I see all of you and know all of you are here and have supported me, and it's made a huge difference. So truly blessings to each of you, and thank you.
That's very sweet. Thank you. And I wonder if anyone else wants to chime in with just any kind of a greeting or an update or something for the group. Now, for those of you who are newer or brand new to our group, and maybe Catherine is, or it's not really Catherine, but the video for Catherine, it's called Catherine, or Deborah, who's newer, or Vimla. Because some of us do come regularly, which you do not have to do to enjoy this. Sometimes we update each other or we share what we've been learning or focusing on. So this is our moment for that. Hello, Lynn. Thanks for joining us. And everyone else who I haven't named: Winnie, Barbara, Debbie, Shannon, Lanny, Eve, Jan, of course, Carrie, of course, Joan. Now, Carol, your paw is in the air.
I just wondered if you want me to finish off what I was talking about last week. I managed to conclude everything.
Oh, that's fun.
So I
Sure.
got through,
We got a
I
few
got
more
through
minutes
your
for that.
slides, and there were 4 lessons that came out of it. One was blame, and I realised about how my judgment of judging myself. The second lesson was free will and how I was trying to overrule, which led to control, which I was forcing the outcome to be what I wanted. And the fourth lesson was boundaries. What's mine and what isn't mine. And when I got to your fourth stage, which I said to you, well, I don't know what they are, I haven't got far enough. They've turned out to be compassion for self, forgiveness for self, realization of the lessons, and thanks for the learning.
Just writing that down. Passion, forgiveness, realization, and gratitude. I love it. You know, one of the interesting things, thank you so much for sharing it. One of the interesting things, not specifically about what you shared, but that you shared it, is how interconnected we are. And I really believe that. I really believe that what Carol just shared is probably exactly what many of us need to hear today. The first of which was very much about acknowledging the limits of control and the illusion of control, embracing the significance of choice and play. You know, play is one of these things that sometimes it gets sort of relegated to like a small subcategory of people. It's like, oh, only the laugh yoga people or the Bernie Siegel people, you know, like that little weird subgroup. But it's not a subgroup. Play is a part of how we all began our lives. Play is the first human language, right? Play is how we learn until we're, I don't know, I would argue teenagers. We play with experiences, we play games with each other. In fact, in the leading developmental psychology today, what they're showing is that the biggest contributor to the mental health crisis in youth today is the lack of unstructured real world play. And because kids are on devices and the play is done for them or with them, or you know, they're not outside playing with other kids, it's fascinating. The book Anxious Generation talks about this. And there's substantial research. But play is required. It's actually required for our development. And it doesn't suddenly cease to be meaningful for us throughout our lives. Play is a vehicle. So I wanted to highlight that. And of course, all the other things you shared: compassion, forgiveness, realization, and gratitude. What a magnificent little package you just delivered. So thank you. There was something else that popped up for me, but anyway, thank you so much. I'm about ready to jump into our theme of the day, but does anybody else need something, want to ask something, share something? Loretta, we've got you in your car. How great. Are you in the back seat of a car? Or you're just going to listen while you drive? Okay, that's fine. I'm always interested in what people do. That's so great. Anybody else? Jan, I thought perhaps. Tell me.
I just want to share that Carrie and I missed last week because we were on Orcas Island, which is beautiful. And when I watched your low water meditation today, it took me right back to Orcas Island. And I thought, oh, Jonathan lives in a place as beautiful as we just spent the weekend. And our week's focus with the camp we were on was on self-compassion. So I love it that Carol included as one of the things she said. It wasn't just compassion, it was self-compassion. And it goes together with compassion. I mean, once you have it for yourself, you can have it for other people, but that's really where it starts.
Well, yes, Jan, just a few minutes from my house, quite literally, if I put a canoe or a kayak or a boat, I could drive to Orcas Island. Now,
Wow.
it would take a while because I'm up a ways, but yeah, we're on the same stretch of water there.
Yeah.
But the other thing that self-compassion reminded me of that Carol touched on was the word was boundaries. And just before starting this video, I was just completing a podcast interview. I don't mention that very often, but I have a podcast. I don't know why I never mention it. I never mention it. I have a podcast, and you just look up Jonathan Ellerby anywhere that you have podcasts, and you'll find my show. And it's not going to come out till later in the summer, but I spoke to a boundaries expert. And wow, it was such a powerful, powerful conversation. And so much of it was about how we've misunderstood boundary work as being so much of a, you know, skill and, it's about sort of formulas of controlling relationships and energy. But in the end, the deeper lasting boundary work is really self-compassion, right? It's learning to honor who we are and how we are in balance with honoring others. It's really not more complicated than that. But the point being that to move to that innate sense of boundaries versus that sort of prescribed, socialized idea of boundaries is is really a transformation of consciousness, and self-love is the heart of it. So I hope you guys had a great camp. Well, listen, I would love to hear more from everyone, but it is time to shift gears. And today, if you are here live, or for your information, if you're listening in the future, it's always funny that when we record these things, we can talk to the people of the future. um, it is Solstice Day, so the 20th crossing into the 21st. Around the world, this day has been celebrated, and we celebrate it as the longest day or the most daylight hours. And of course, there are traditions, from the indigenous traditions of the Americas to Celtic traditions, wherever you want to go, I could start listing them, but you get the idea. Um, Solstice has had significance. And it's interesting. So we're going to go into a little preamble, and then a little prayer, and then a little reflection, and then a longer meditation. So it's interesting, first of all, that the solstice was even identified thousands of years ago. And I say it's interesting because we sort of take for granted uh, that we know that it's solstice, but most of us only know because someone told us or because it's on a calendar. It's not actually because many of us are paying such close attention to the daylight and the movement of the stars and the sun and the moon that we've calculated ourselves, oh, it's solstice today, and I know this because I track the shadows of the trees each and every morning. Now, some of you might, but our ancestors, they did. And we know this not only because of ritual and ceremony and sacred story, but we also know that uh, architecture and geography has been shaped in many places based on the solstice. And some of you know what I'm talking about, some of you may not. As an example, in the southwest of the United States, there are certain um, indigenous, we would call them ancient dwellings or prehistoric dwellings, sort of a weird term, um, where on the solstice day, the path of the sun as it crosses through the windows of ceremonial chambers will, for example, reflect on a certain wall or illuminate a four directions motif in the structure or something of that nature, which means that we have been acknowledging this day for thousands of years. And I do not believe that anything is purely physical. This is not just about the number of daylight hours, but of course there is a subtle energy dimension to this. And while all the different solstice traditions are different, I would also say that one thing that unites the traditions is the idea, and I have to tell you, I didn't always get this. The idea is that in the presence of so much light, it is the threshold of letting go of shadow. So I'm going to say that again and differently in a few ways, because this is really my opening message, which is as we come through these longest days of light, we are encouraged to embrace the light in an attitude and intention of letting go, releasing. And some of you have even heard me say in some of our prayers or ceremonies the expression, I release into the light anything that is not of the light. And that phrase, which for me is a magical phrase, I mean magical literally, not poetically, like I believe that's a statement of power. We can use the energy of the day to release energy that has been stuck or held, and it can be as big as pain or themes or patterns or confusion that we've carried our whole lives, or it could be just something from this year or this month or this week. But it's just, I don't know, I find it beautiful because so much of traditional, when I say traditional, I mean historic spirituality, there's actually quite a bit of darkness, right? I mean, ceremonies are done at night, and even in the Christian tradition, cathedrals and churches were often, you know, darker places where they used the play of light, sure, through stained glass and positioning of windows. But we are just talking about the flat, bright daylight of the earth. And so I invite you to consider going out into the light today or tomorrow and spending time, becoming conscientious and purposeful, even ritual, in how you let go. And so our first sharing, and then we're going to move into a solstice prayer. So the first sharing, I would love to ask the group, and in this case, I'm going to ask for shorter contributions, just a minute or two, and not, we're just going to withhold stories for now. But what are some of the ways you have experienced do-it-yourself rituals of letting go and release? We've got writing things down on little pieces of paper and burning them, and we've got writing down on little pieces of paper and burying them, and all those kinds of piece of paper sorts of activities. What else comes to mind? And we have Barbara. Unmute yourself. Oh, Barbara. Yeah, Barbara, you're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So what's a
Okay.
little letting go ritual?
A very easy thing I like to do on the new moon is to release everything, and then on the full moon set new intentions.
Okay. So what would you do in behavioral terms for your friends listening? What does it look like?
I'm a big journal person. I'm a big writer.
Okay, great.
And so I might light a candle. I might be outside. And I would meditate first, and then I would just think about it, then reflect, then write it in my journal.
Beautiful. And I love the sharing with the new moon and the full moon, which to me on solstice come together, which is releasing and receiving. And my advice for people, just my opinion, but in terms of receiving on the solstice, I would encourage people not to try to program what you get to receive, right? To release into the light whatever may be on your mind and your heart, what's going on. But when it comes to receiving, it's really just, it's kind of this image: as I empty, I open myself to be filled, right? And I receive from the light whatever is in the highest good, or I receive that which is of the light to guide me, whatever that would be. But I'd say on a day like solstice, like let the universe decide what's in your highest good. Let God decide what light work might look like in your life. So thank you for that. I love the journaling. So journaling could be what some of you are going to do today and tomorrow. Someone else, is there another specific behavior, a ritual, an activity? Someone wrote take a bath. I think that's actually a really good one. Others, just short summaries or quick examples. Yeah, Joan. Unmuting and sharing.
I have lately been, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I have been doing a chant to Kali, because she is the goddess of destruction, but I either release something specific that is so important to release, or I ask to release something that's not in my highest good. And there's this wonderful her name's Yasmin Boland. I don't know if you know Yasmin, but Yasmin, and she's really has a moonology. She's an astrologist by nature, but she's really into moonology. And it's maybe I do it for 5 minutes, and each chant is probably 30 seconds, and it's Kali. I see I won't be able to do it on demand. Anyway, I can feel the echo of the vibration exactly in my body where I need it. And it feels like it vibrates to my heart and soul. And I either release what's not in my highest good or something specific.
Very nice. So I love the full description and specifically chanting. So for people that are more connected with sound, or you're not a journaler, to go out in the sun. If you need sunscreen and a hat, go ahead and do that. Or walk and hold your intention, hold your prayer, and chant. And there's, chanting can be from any tradition. You can even go on Spotify or iTunes and look up sacred chant, and you'll find more than you need. Does anybody else have an activity? The 4 elements are often a good go-to, which means putting something into water or carrying water. This is a kind of a one that I like, which is to go for a walk, but you actually take a glass jar of water, so you have to be careful with it. That's part of it. And you spend the walk holding it to your heart and just thinking, feeling, ruminating, going over all this letting go thing, and get to your place of letting go. Maybe it's a great tree that you pour it and release it to, or maybe it's a body of water in which all of your troubles become small in the vastness. There's lots of ways to energetically and symbolically do it, but again, there's another example. Anybody else? Let's see if we can get just one more example of a ritual behavior for the solstice day. Lanny, yeah. Unmute and come on.
Well, I have done a lot of ceremonies over the year, usually at a fire pit, Native American style, smudging, which I'm doing right now. I smudge regularly. And the whole idea is bringing the light in, setting whatever intention, but bringing the light in, being grateful for the light, and then letting go of whatever needs to, like I have burned pieces of papers in the fire pit. We've done drumming, we've done, all sorts of wonderful soul connecting things. So
love it. All those are so good. The fire, drumming as an extension of chanting or instead of, that's a really good one. The smudging tradition as well, which may not be familiar to everyone, but I have my smudge bowl and I chronically burn cedar. I'm always telling my family every time I come in from the office, I'm not smoking because I don't want my kids to think I smoke, but I'm always smelling like smoke, and it's like I'm on fire. So smudging, if you're unfamiliar, it's really just the use of sacred incenses In indigenous cultures, it's in North America, it's often sage, sweetgrass, which I also have here, cedar, and tobacco. But this is all over the world. I mean, in the Catholic Church, it's been frankincense forever, I suppose, since the frankincense and myrrh was delivered. And of course, in the Eastern traditions, the Buddhist temples are always or usually filled with incense. So the washing of one's energy body and setting prayers while smudging or burning sacred smoke. Beautiful. Thank you for all those examples. Anybody else before? Joni, you mentioned breath work. Did you want to expand on that? No. She says no. All right. Well, you could do breath work then. Oh yes, Palo Santo for smudging. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. All right. Well, on that note, while you begin to reflect on your solstice intentions for today, I wonder if we could take a little moment now just to move into a shared prayer. And from there into a deeper reflection. And then we'll close with a kind of an extended guided imagery. Sound good? All right. So I'm going to invite you, wherever you are, and whatever you're doing, unless you're driving a car, to sit comfortably but alert. And you can certainly feel your way along if you're busy washing dishes or driving or something. But I'm going to invite you to just do less than more. And if you have the ability to sit quietly and do nothing, then let's do that. So I'm taking my glasses off. I like to put my right hand on my heart, my left hand on my belly. And I do this for a lot of reasons. Physiologically, it triggers a relaxation response. And energetically, it's also about connecting with my heart as my core and my gut, this sort of stomach area as something like the seat of intuition and grounding closer to my, lower and root chakras. So sort of like a balancing act. Connecting with my breath now. And sometimes this is a very, very powerful practice. Sometimes when you have your hands on yourself like this and you enter into a prayerful mode, you can even ask for the energies that guide you and help you and heal you to work through your hands, to bring healing and light to you today. Drawing a deep breath in and holding it for a moment. And just noticing any tension or tightness, breathing it out through your mouth. Yawning, stretching. Another deep breath in, holding it a moment. Feel some tension, let it go. Long, long exhale. And feel yourself slowing down and settling down. Feel the quietness growing within you and around you. And as we take this moment just to connect with that stillness and the silence beneath all things, may we sense, remember, appreciate that this silence that holds you holds me. That in this silence we are as close as we could ever be. And despite time or distance, in the stillness we are together. We are one. From this place, we pray, each in our own way, together as one. Ancient spirits, guides and guardians, to the beings of light and the oneness that is all things, our source, our substance, the mysterious existence that is God, that is us. We pray. In gratitude today for the arrival of yet another solstice, a day of hope, a day in which we feel the fullness of light and energy and love, the full arrival of the summer season. And may we cherish this day and hold it deeply so that we may feel it, remember it in the darker days that are sure to come ahead. We are grateful for these moments of life that show us that we live in cycle, we live in rhythm, we live in the energy of all things. We are reminded that this life is a journey from dark to light, light to dark, form and formless, being and non-being. We give thanks for the miracle of this creation and our place in it. To those that guide us and watch over us, a special prayer for each one who hears these words, that you would help us to release into the light anything that is not of the light, to release the boundaries, the burdens, the barriers that keep us from our highest good and our highest expression. May our paths be graceful, peaceful, filled with love and courage, endurance when times are difficult, scary, uncomfortable. And together in this prayer, we gather the light and share. We share this light, this prayer, this love to all those who live in shadow, fear, crisis, the terrifying uncertainty of violence, addiction, war, persecution, all the pains of this human life we hold in the light, and today we take root in this light. We nourish this light. We receive this light in honor of those who perhaps today in this moment cannot see it, cannot feel it. May we draw this energy into our earth world and share this energy, this light, with everyone in need and for each other, for our prayers here today, our hopes here today, our needs here today, and for ourselves. Blessings of light, may we be nourished and filled abundantly with the energy of awakening, love, joy, profound connection. And so, with all the prayers in our hearts that remain unspoken, with all the prayers for each other that remain unspoken, we lift this blessing, this prayer, into the light of this sacred day. And together we say, Amen. So coming from our prayer to our next reflection, I think about how sacred days and sacred rituals and ceremonies are often an opportunity to move more deeply into a belief or a new way of being, or just to hold a consciousness that we're moving into. And there's a word that comes to mind for me today that is not something we would typically associate, I don't think, with a solstice. And the word is forgive, or forgiveness. And the reason why that word is so powerful for me today is because with any release, even things that have been torturous to us, even things that we no longer want, especially these things, if we do not release with forgiveness and the willingness to grieve, it's very difficult to make space for what's next. In fact, it could sound a little extreme, but I would say that if forgiveness is not a conscientious part of whatever you're letting go of, there will be no room to receive. Because energetically, we may have I don't know, I'm looking around for an object. I have so many weird things around me. I may have an object in my life. This is not easy to see. Okay. This cup is actually a better example. So I may have a cup filled with something that I don't want to carry anymore. Dishonesty about something, lack of authenticity about something, lack of ownership of something, the pain of something. And I can say on solstice day with my cup and my blessing and my prayer, I release this and I pour it out and I accept the light and I fill my cup with light, all this good stuff. But if that release doesn't come with a heartfelt forgiveness, then what I find is that when we hold the cup to receive, it's already full. Because the forgiveness fills the space, or the lack of forgiveness fills the space, the resentment, the regret, the pain, all these things. Yeah, I finally put down the thing, but I haven't put down my feelings about it. And very often that occupies as much space as the thing itself, sometimes more. On the Jewish New Year of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, it's always caught my attention that this is an annual day of this sort of letting go of the regrets, or what you might call in a Judeo-Christian sense, the sins of the year, but there is an earnest petition for forgiveness. And I think we can take note of that today, because there's this idea that if I don't realize that someone may need to forgive me, or I may need to forgive myself, then there's probably still a lot of attachment to this thing I'm letting go of. Now you could say, well, how's that possible? Because if I'm letting go of it, isn't that aren't I free of it now? Well, the very fact that you need to let go of whatever this feeling, belief, self-judgment, behavior, whatever it is, the very fact that you still need to do it today means that up until right now, it's occupying this emotional energy in your life. And it's become a part of you. And a part of you that you have not been ready or willing to let go of yet. Why? Because there's a certain lack of acceptance. Why? Because there's a certain lack of forgiveness. Forgiveness is a word that is just easily misunderstood. So we're not talking about tolerating terrible things, and we're not talking about giving people permission to do terrible things, or even ourselves, but it is acknowledging the imperfection of life, the perpetual movement between integration and disintegration, form and formless, knowing and unknowing. Forgiveness has become the kind of iconic energy that some of us choose rarely on grand occasions. But I would argue that today is the day we get to remember that at some level, every ceremony, every great transitional moment is a macrocosm of the opportunity that comes moment by moment, all day, every day. So forgiveness to me is when we wake up and when we move through the day and when we lie down. Any judging, controlling, attaching, and turning our hearts towards receiving, accepting, learning, and making new choices with compassion. So this was the reflection I wanted to share, and then would like to move into a guided meditation, and we can carry this reflection on forgiveness with us. But I do want to pause and see if there's anything anybody wants to add. We're not going to have a big discussion right now, but if there's something simple or brief that you'd like to contribute, Barbara actually had forgiveness on her list at the beginning. But I wonder if anybody else wants to just speak briefly to forgiveness and its role for you, either in the solstice or today or just in general. And I just might pick someone. So, Shannon, do you feel like speaking about forgiveness briefly? Unmute and come on. There you go.
Well, I would just like to comment on the comment you made, which I thought was really interesting about the fact, and when you talk about forgiveness, like, is that for the other person or for yourself? Who?
Were you asking me specifically?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
could be both.
Okay.
Could be either. Could be only one,
Well, I just think it's really interesting that even something that occurred ages ago that's still hanging there with you, unless you look at it and forgive, I'm guessing the situation, the hurt, maybe your own stupidity, especially all those things that go into it, that there's no room for, what did you say? What, no room for what?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's this sort of energetic visualization that if you want to receive light, new energy, a renewed capacity to embrace your insight or your intention, as long as you're still holding on to the resentment or the regret or the judgment, the hand is full and we really can't receive, or the cup is full.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was very interesting. So,
yeah. Well, and it's interesting because one thing that your question gets me thinking about is the therapeutic approach. And one of the things that we have to be careful of in the modern world, whether we're literally doing therapy with someone else or sort of a self-healing process, is that we recognize that knowledge is only a step in the process. I know what happened, and now I know what I should do. But do you feel what happened? And do you feel how you feel about what happened? Because more often than not on the healing journey, it's how we feel about things that's the bigger issue than the things themselves. Because some people can have experiences, for example, at a young age, that are horrifically violent, even. And because of the circumstance, the moment, the person, what else they were connected to, I mean, it's shocking, but sometimes they don't really hold it There's this kind of a instantaneous understanding, and there's like, oh yeah, well that's just what was happening back then. And for others, something much smaller, something very simple, can feel deeply wounding and deeply rejecting and deeply betraying. Even when perhaps by all accounts it's not. So what your question just highlights for me to mention is forgiveness speaks to not always what was done or what happened or what we did, but how we think about it, how we feel about it, how we live in relationship to it. And that is significant to make space for something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Joan.
This will be really quick, but I always, when I went into the deep, like, and then forgave, it was as if I had created my own prison. And I saw bars and I looked at the world through the space in between those bars instead of having the fullness of a new view, and realizing that the words that kept coming to me as limitation, that I limited options and opportunities and saw through a filter, whether it was trust, whether it was betrayal, whether it was violence, almost death. It was just, when I actually forgave, it was as if I pulled apart those bars and I saw them melting, and this whole worldview came through.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's a beautiful contribution. And there's that old cliche, not forgiving something is like taking a poison yourself and expecting someone else to die, right? So there's this Jones illustrated so well, that forgiveness is for ourselves. It's not about saying what someone did is okay. It might be saying, yes, it might be saying, well, I acknowledge that it happened. And I acknowledge that I don't know their journey or their suffering or what brought them to it. But most significantly, it's about freedom for the self. So that's beautiful. Now, let's get one last contribution before the meditation. And I am only going to pick on Jan and Carrie, and you can both go, or one of you can go, because you just came back from a wonderful workshop and you must be filled with wisdom. So which of you would like to say something about, or both of you, about forgiveness or solstice or whatever is coming to mind? Carrie? Oh, we can't hear you, but you are not muted. So I don't know. Is your microphone off? Oh, you're just charades. 3 words. Okay. I don't know what's going on with your microphone, but you are unmuted and not hearing. So, no. Oh, no.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a head cold and I lost my voice. But isn't that funny that even my computer knows that I lost my voice? So I don't want to say much. I want Jan because she's so wise. But I'll just say my image during all of the whole everything that we've talked about is like at Indalaya at the camp on Orcas Island that we went to, Therapeutic Touch, was when we're in the Sound and we're on one of the beaches right there, and the water comes in and the water goes out, and it's not big wave. There's no waves. It's just in and out and in and out of this major sound of all these San Juan Islands. That we were on the top of Mount Constitution looking at Canada and looking at you, Jonathan, but on this little tiny, I was out in my backyard and I had a shell in my hand, a little shell, and it was in and out, in and out, in and out. It's release and get, release and get, release and get, release and get every second of the day. And that's how I feel about my options. It's every minute of every day I have in and out, in and out, in and out. So,
Beautiful, beautiful. What a beautiful image. Thank you, Carrie. Thank
yeah,
you.
thank
And you're
you.
right. Jan is wise, although
Oh,
you are quite wise yourself.
I know. Well,
Thank you for that. And by the way, I have this interesting thing I thought I would just quickly share with you because of what you said, Carrie. I didn't mean to have this on camera. I bought myself this broom a while ago, and I have a ritual that every day I sweep my office. And I sweep it for the energetic practice. So I light a smudge and I sweep, and I always find dirt even when I think it's clean. And it's just like a couple minutes to slow down and remember this release and receive, release and receive. It's like cleaning, letting go, cleaning, letting go. It's you're right. It's the way of the world. Jan, something you would like to, we would love you to add something. Thank you, Carrie.
I don't have anything to add to Carrie's wisdom. I just bow to your wisdom. I remember being on the beach and seeing and feeling that, and it's beautiful. I could just say on the subject of forgiveness, for me, it's almost always self forgiveness that's the most difficult.
Yeah. And the most important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting, Jan. I appreciate you saying that because I think that even in the most dramatic stories of true victimization, when we have really been hurt by someone else, we think, and I'm generalizing, we think it's so hard to forgive that person for doing that terrible thing. But I find more often than not, when you really sit with it, deeper than the rage or the pain or the sorrow of what they did is shame and the inability to forgive ourselves. How did I let that happen? Why was I there? Why me? What could I have done differently? Do I deserve it? Even shame at just a core level, that somehow I just might not be deserving of life or goodness, and that's why that happened to me. So it sounds illogical to say that sometimes the hardest thing is to forgive ourselves that someone else has done. But I would say your point about self-forgiveness being difficult and important, I'd say absolutely, and even when it appears to be about someone else, there's still some deep self-forgiveness in there. Yeah. Well, thank you. Let's move to our closing visualization, our guided imagery, guided meditation. And I want to thank you all for being here today. And let me just say, if you're not a fan of guided imagery, just do your best. Let's not overthink this. It's not going to take very long, but use your imagination. Be creative, be spontaneous, and whatever you do, go with the flow, relax, and don't judge your experience till it's over. Then I still don't think you should judge it, but don't be in the middle of a guided imagery. Why did I think that? I'm not getting this right. Oh, nothing's coming to me. Like, come on. Relax. Just pick something and go with it. So, on that note, we're going to get comfortable again. So, sitting comfortably but alert, letting our eyes close, letting our body soften. Big breath in, hold for a few moments, and then a long exhale until you cannot exhale anymore, and then exhale a little more. After that, a soft, full breath in through the nose, hold it, and then a long, long exhale, exhaling as completely as possible, and then a little more. Feel your mind growing quiet, your body growing heavy and soft. feeling the awareness of stillness growing again. And an image begins to form as you picture a magnificent place in nature. You're standing on a hill of some kind, looking out or down. A beautiful solstice day, full sun, warm but not uncomfortably hot. And imagine what it would feel like to be in this place right now. And what do you see? What is this landscape? Is it familiar or new? What do you see in the distance? What do you see when you look down at your feet? Breathe in the energy of the day. Receive the energy of the day. And then if you haven't seen it already, you'll notice there's a little trail, a path. And regardless of any tiredness or any limits of your body, in this moment you are free and you are able, and you find that trail and you move down the path, walking freely, seeing the colors and the shapes of the landscape around you, whether it's stones or leaves or structures, whatever it is. Down, down, down you go. And you move down feeling calmer, more present, more aware of the power of this place, the beauty of this place. And you sense, as you come to the bottom of this hill or this incline, sense of presence, energy, as though you were approaching something sacred. And you come to the bottom and you will turn one way or the other, and there, very near, you will see a beautiful ceremonial circle there in nature. Only you can see it, only you know what it is, whether it's a circle of large stones or small stones, or maybe it's a structure, or maybe it's made of wood. Only you can see. But it's clearly a place of power and peace. And as you move to it, before you move to it, notice something, there's some resistance. You want to go, but there's a heaviness, and you will find in your hands or your arms that you are holding something that it is time to forgive, time to release. Could be a photograph of you and a person, or you in a place, or you in a time of your life. Could be an object, an energy, something symbolic. Take a moment before you go any further. Just find this. Maybe it comes spontaneously. Maybe you choose it. See if you can connect with your deep desire to let this go, to forgive this. And then as you move towards this ceremonial space, you will see there is a place to put this down, a place to receive that which you need to let go of. Maybe you don't see it right away. Could be a little stream, a fire, a hole, or just a place on the ground. See, feel yourself releasing that object. Use your breath right now as you exhale the energy of whatever it is, resentment, regret, pain, fear, sadness, stuckness, whatever it is, breathing it out. And see that object and energy change form, whether it's just buried or burned or turns into something else. Really feel it outside you now. This is no longer yours to carry. And then you will notice the way into the circle. And take your time, find that place, and then move in and take your place where you have been called. Maybe you're the only one. Maybe it's on the ground, maybe it's on a structure. Allow yourself to release into the light anything that is not of the light. Feel your body, your breath, your mind exhaling anything that limits you, and turning your attention to the light that somehow in this circle feels more focused, feels more intense and intentional, and breathing in the light. Welcoming the energy in to replace and replenish any place that has been stuck or wounded or that you have surrendered. Feel yourself nourished and cared for, and just as you prepare to leave, you may sense that you are not alone. A being comes to you as if to guide you out and onward. Could be a creature, a person, an energy being. Only you know who or what that is. Maybe someone you know and love. See them, feel the connection, whatever you need to do, embrace, talk briefly, exchange. As you prepare each other to move on. When you're ready, releasing that circle, releasing that person or being or presence, finding your way to the hill. And as you begin the journey up, taking a deep breath and allowing the images to fade, the place fades, the scene fades, but the energy stays with you. The feeling stays with you, the insights stay with you. And as you come back to your body, to your breath, and the circle here online, just allow yourself to savor the feeling and know that it may continue to unfold today in journaling or reflections or meditations or before bed, and that's okay. Let it all be part of it. And without taking the time to dilute the energy and talk and get into our minds, we're going to come to a close. And you can stay with it if you like. Write about it, feel it. But I want to thank you for being here with me on the solstice. Thank you for holding space for each other. And I hope you have received something of value today, and I hope you've released something of value today. And Garth knows how to get recordings of this. I think you need to be on Humanity's team to get it. Yeah. I don't know if there's another way, but I'll hear from Garth if there is. So much love and gratitude and blessings of releasing, receiving, releasing, and receiving on this beautiful solstice day. All right. Lots of love to everyone, and I'll see you next week.